Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is our Kids on Bikes role-playing game. Welcome to Paradise, Michigan. This is episode 13, Anomalies. And in just a few minutes, we will get into a recap and see what that title's all about and what's going on. A couple of quick announcements. First up, look up above where M would be. And yeah, I did, Carrie. I almost said scribes and
I just know
scrolls
when you
again.
go, it's like very specific.
That's why I almost started the game, tried to start the game a half hour early too. Anyway.
Sorry.
No, I'm the one that called attention to it. If you look up above Tomiko and where M would be, you can see our lovely Terrain Treats domain pops. They are our special domain dice that are in play for this game. Our players can only get those by 500-bit cheers, $5 tips, or subscriptions, whether gifted, resubs, brand new subs, whatever they may be. And what they can use those for is they can use them to gain a +1 on any roll, use it as an adversity token, or last week we introduced the what did I call it? The D100 mystery grab bag. There are 100 possible things that could happen. It costs them 5 domain pops to get a roll on that. But they are anything from very minor influences all the way to, well, quite frankly, game-changing things. And they range from very, very good to very, very bad. And I absolutely encourage the players to use those. And when you do whenever you do earn domain pops, they look like this. That's simple. The other thing I want to talk about is, and I think I got to do this manually, a couple weeks ago we debuted a brand new Paradise, Michigan retro postcard design. I designed that. It is now available in our Teespring store, and Carrie and I are both wearing them tonight. We both ordered on day one. Very comfortable shirts. I always like Springs shirts.
This is the softest one I've gotten in a while.
Their sweatshirts are really nice. Their hooded sweatshirts are amazing. But yeah, you can type !merch to go to the store and see what else we got there. Tons of merch for the various shows and whatnot. So head on over there and check it out. Of course, you can type !schedule at any time to see what our schedule's like. We've kind of taken an unintentional, but have turned it into an intentional 1 month break for Scribes and Scrolls. So Scribes and Scrolls will be returning not this Monday, but the Monday after. And then we are also on a brief hiatus, returning in, I think it's going to end up being about a month, for Sky Metal, Iron Gods, our other Pathfinder game. It's summertime. People get busy in the summertime, so
It's summertime.
yeah, it's summertime.
Summertime, the living is easy.
I think. Okay, the only other thing I want to mention real quick, 2 things actually, before we get started. One is just a reminder that at times our games can get intense with psychological horror, as well as dealing with sensitive issues. You may hear some adult language, despite the fact that these are all kids. This is an era right around the dawn of the PG-13 rating, so you'll definitely hear more than PG-13 stuff. So just a reminder, if any of that kind of thing offends you, feel free to go to another stream. We won't be offended. But also know that we have safety tools in place, and we have regular discussions and make sure that we are all okay with what is happening. So And then the last thing I want to mention before we kind of get into things is to remind you that you matter. Whether you believe it or not, your presence on this earth makes a difference. We all struggle for various reasons from time to time. It is okay to struggle, but you do not have to struggle alone. There are resources that are available to you, and I know firsthand that it can be kind of daunting not knowing where to turn or how to find help. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible. You can come into our chat at any time and you can type !help, and you will see a couple of URLs pop up. They'll also show up at the bottom of the screen from time to time. Findahelpline.com, or you can check out takethis.org's growing list of resources. We encourage you to visit those websites, bookmark them, save them for yourself, save them for a friend, and remember, you matter. With that, it is time for me to welcome you, dear audience, to Paradise, Michigan. When last we left off, our Kids on Bikes crew had found themselves once again in a precarious situation. This time they were miniaturized on a model railroad. They knew they needed to get to the lighthouse because the builder of the model railroad was also miniaturized. Jude of Betty and Jude's Crafts and Hobbies. However, there was a roadblock, or rather a track block, set up for you all in the form of members of G.I. Joe, Cobra, and Grimlock, one of the Transformers Dinobots. You all were able to interact and cause some brief distractions, and then Rosie and Laz came flying over the mountain on Templeton, the rat, to disperse things, and Coop took the controls and got the train moving, and you were all able to hurry on to your destination. With the help of Jude, you worked on the controls of the lighthouse and aiming the light at Templeton, while Templeton the rat stood outside and used his own power to control electronics to feed energy into the lighthouse. There was a tremendous shaking and clattering, and I will clarify for anybody, there was a little bit of wonkiness with the math that we clarified after the stream went off air, and mathematically
I had nothing to do with it.
No, that's why I was in error. Mathematically, you didn't just miss the DC, you actually just hit the DC. So that will have a slight influence. But the door to the lighthouse, the miniature lighthouse, was slightly ajar. Rosie peered outside to see it was not the miniature lighthouse. You were, in fact, at the real lighthouse, the Candle Point Lighthouse on Paradise Beach. You could see Lake Michigan, the Lake Michigan waves rolling in, and then Rosie spotted the tiny form of the normal-sized rat, Templeton, lying still on the beach, and ran forward to him. In just a moment, we are going to see how that scene plays out. But first, a little bit of a prologue for this episode.
Last time on Lost.
We hear the sound of several pairs of hard-soled shoes walking along concrete, echoing dully in the high-ceilinged hallways. We see a close-up, low-angle view of a woman's feet walking at a quick pace, black heels clicking rhythmically. Behind her and slightly to the left, another woman walks, her feet seeming to almost shuffle as she hurries to keep pace. Behind and slightly to the right, two pairs of men's dress shoes follow the lead woman, the hems of their lab coats just visible. The lead woman wears an expensive tailored pantsuit, charcoal gray with a white blouse under the blazer. Her black hair is pulled tightly into a bun with 2 crossed hairpins holding it in place. She is tall with an athletic build and, despite working in an underground facility, has a summer tan. She moves with both purpose and confidence, staring straight ahead. Around her neck hangs a lanyard with an ID badge attached. Below her photo on the ID is her name and title. Ashley Raven, Director of Operations, The Nexus Project. The other woman wears a much less expensive looking long black skirt, gray blazer with slightly too large shoulder pads, and a pair of black framed glasses which she frequently pushes up her nose. Her thick auburn hair is pulled into a single long braid. She is much shorter than the others around her and has to move slightly quicker to keep up. She is carrying a black leather portfolio, holding it close to her chest as if she's afraid its contents might somehow escape. Around her neck, a similar lanyard hangs, reading Carlene Adams, Operations Assistant, The Nexus Project.
Miko.
The man walking closest to Director Raven is middle-aged, with dark hair, a widow's peak, and just a hint of gray at the temples. He is clean-shaven and wears a white shirt and black tie under his white lab coat. His dark green eyes occasionally steal a glance at the director, and thin beads of sweat across his brow betray his lack of confidence in this moment. The badge around his neck identifies him as Dr. Devin Sharp, Chief Scientific Specialist, The Nexus Project. Finally, we see the last man of this quartet. He has short-cropped hair, a neatly trimmed beard, and round metal-framed glasses. He walks briskly, easily keeping pace, though he has a very slight limp in his gait. He does not appear to be nervous, and no traces of worry cross his face. He looks over at Miss Adams and gives a small, cheerful smile, which she returns for a moment before turning her attention to where the director is leading them. He, too, wears an ID badge on a lanyard, but has gotten turned around so that all we can see is the back of the badge, which bears the logo of the Paradise Orchards processing facility. The director leads them around a series of seemingly random turns, traversing several hallways. On either side of the hallway, spaced at even intervals, are several green doors, each with a brass handle. Next to each door are simple engraved placards. Each bears a simplified variation of the Paradise Orchard Processing Facility logo in black above a barcode. Below each barcode is a human readable project number. Some of them read P3R53PH0N3, 4D4M, 3V3, J4M35, 4LG3R0N, T3MPL3T0N.
Fuck, I lost it.
It is outside these last 2 doors that the director suddenly stops. Dr. K, these were your specimens? It is not a question. The bearded and bespectacled scientist steps forward. Yes, ma'am. They are mine. Or my responsibility, that is. He steps forward and raises his hand up toward the sign. As he does so, we see that he is wearing a black wristwatch with a blank face upon it. He holds it up toward the barcode, and a red laser from the watch scans the code. An unseen lock clicks open. As he reaches to open the door, he turns to the director and smiles up at her. I've taken to calling them Algernon and Templeton. Director Ashley Raven gives him the slightest hint of a smile and says, "Clever." Then she strides into the room. Now, can you tell me how your project ended up in the hands of a bunch of children? Rosie, you are kneeling in the warm sands of Paradise Beach, and you are holding the seemingly lifeless form of Templeton in your hands. The rest of the your group and Jude come from their respective places inside, unless you would have chosen to stay inside the lighthouse, and sort of are gathering behind you. Rosie, what are you doing as you're looking at this small white rat?
I think like Rosie would just kind of like look over him for a second and just like look really, really close and see if there's like any little indications that he's breathing or anything that like maybe you couldn't see at a snap.
Rosie. What is an exceptionally sad memory that you have?
An exceptionally sad memory. I guess would be probably like one of the earliest times her father took she and her brother out to visit her mother's burial site, which they do once a year, every year on her mother's birthday. And it didn't happen often, but you know, Rosie just kind of was always watching her brother for how to behave and how to act, and during this day, because it's all very strange for her. But on this day, for whatever reason, it hit her father harder than it usually did. And it was the first time she saw her father cry. And it was, it kind of, once it started, he kind of didn't stop crying all day. And Rosie just couldn't really say anything, even in consolation. She could just sort of stand quietly, and every so often she would feel her brother's hand on her shoulder and kind of give a reassuring squeeze. But that was hard.
In this memory, these scenes play out in your head. In particular, a scene later in the day. After dinner, your father had gone into the kitchen to clean up. You and your brother are in the other room, and you see your dad just all of a sudden, as he's at the sink, double over a little bit, and a sob escapes. And as he has been all day long, he starts weeping. You feel, once again, your brother's hand on your shoulder as you watch helplessly. From the opposite side of your brother, you hear a voice. This was a very painful time for you, wasn't it?
Rosie doesn't answer, but like she just kind of like squeezes her eyes shut tight. Like almost trying to like kind of like shake the memory away. Like, you know, when you have a bad memory and you kind of just like, ugh, and that's kind of what she does.
It doesn't shake away. So much pain and heartache caused by one single death. It's kind of your origin story, isn't it?
Shut up. Shut up.
Templeton. Don't let him die. I want to be the one who kills him. And you're out of the memory.
And I'm like still like staring. I find myself like staring down at Templeton again and looking for any sign of breathing. And this memory is still very much there. And Rosie wants it to like fade away, kind of like when you wake up from a dream, and it just isn't like leaving her right away. But Rosie is just kind of like, Laz, and she like turns and starts yelling. It's like, come here, quick.
He runs up and kind of drops onto his knees, kind of in the sand, opposite of Rosie. Is he breathing?
I can't tell. And Rosie would hand him to Laz.
Put a mirror under his nose.
What?
Would I be able to, go over as well? See if there's anything I might be able to
Yeah,
do?
Oh.
this is your scene. You guys can do what you wish.
So Billy would be right on Laz's heels. Is there a way to see if he's breathing? Like, try to feel like his chest cavity, see if it's rising and falling, see if there's a heartbeat.
I think probably Billy more than any of you, with your scouting knowledge, you have a little bit of familiarity with animals. You know that a lot of small animals like this, their hearts beat so much faster that it should be easy to identify a rapid pulse. And as you gather around with Laz now holding on to Templeton, you reach down and you just sort of place your finger across his chest, and you feel nothing.
Shit. Is there like a vet? Is there like a vet here?
I don't feel a heartbeat. So I would begin trying to do like, chest compressions. Trying to see if that can stimulate anything.
Before you can even start doing that, you hear, and Laz, you feel a convulsion and a little bit of a as Templeton sneezes. And Billy, under your fingertips, you feel as his heartbeat suddenly quickens. And little Templeton, he's been in the background the whole time. I wanted to see if anybody would notice him. Little Templeton looks up at you, all of you around him, and in that voice that is his, though slightly smaller, you hear, Did it work?
Oh, he can still talk.
Yeah, it worked. Look, we're all big. You're small now. And I didn't think that you were gonna make it, buddy. But you okay?
It's always very.
Oh my
It
God.
takes a lot out of me when I have to control stuff, and that was a lot of energy.
Rosie like
there
falls
anything-
back. She's like sitting on her knees, but she like falls back into the sand. She's like, Jesus Christ. Oh.
Behind,
I reach into my backpack and I pull out my bag of homemade trail mix, and I'll pour a little bit into my hand and put it out in front of him.
and he kind of sniffs at it a moment, and then takes one of the peanuts in his hand and just starts doing that, turning it over.
Peanuts, Jeremy, you dick.
Thank you. Thank you. This is very tasty. Behind you all, in the direction of the lighthouse, you hear Jessica. Are you serious? Now what?
Jessica Templeton, he lives. He is risen.
As you turn towards Jessica, you see Jessica, but she's holding her hands up like this. And you see the tips of her fingers. It looks like almost like pixels. Her fingers are picture a little bit like pixels, but also the now iconic scene from the Avengers. I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. Jessica seems to be disintegrating,
Oh shit.
and she's looking at her hands, And it's, as it goes down her hands, it's starting very quickly to fall away. And she looks around at all of you. And suddenly, Laz.
Is she still in the tower?
No, she's come out of the tower. Her eyes meet Laz's eyes. And Laz, you see in Jessica's face, probably for the first time, genuine fear. And then she looks at you as
I don't know what to do.
she starts. You see the sides of her, like her big hairsprayed hair, and the sides of her face and her shoulders are starting to dissolve away. And she looks at you, Laz, and she says, "Take care of them." And suddenly, Jessica blows away.
Jessica?
Sorry,
No, what?
sorry. The choppiness is my end.
No, okay. Take care of who?
Wait a minute.
So,
You can't go like that. What?
so I imagine Billy, who already feels very subconscious about, all the bad things that have happened to Jessica that she likes to blame him for, whether it's his fault or not. Like he probably would have taken a couple of steps, in the sand, reaching out to her as if somehow making a physical connection to one of us might make a difference. But, for dramatic sake, he doesn't get there before she's gone.
Well,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to up the drama a little bit. Billy, as you step forward and you reach to where Jessica was, you see just a little bit of your fingertips do the same thing. Just a little bit. And as Jessica blows away, you see almost like a rapidly spreading rash. Your backs of your fingers and the backs of your hand to your wrist turns almost like it almost looks like ash across your hand. And the tips of your fingers have dissolved away.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Billy, come. Get back over here.
So I just stand there in shock for a moment, looking in whatever direction Jessica blew away. I don't know. Like,
I would
Billy,
run up
where-
to Billy. I would run up to Billy and freaking bear hug him and pull him away from where Jessica was before this shit happens to him too.
Get him away from there! The leprosy herpes already took his finger!
As you yank him away,
Yeah.
he's solid. He's Billy. He's all there except for his fingertips and this weird ashy scale on the back of his hand. And even as you look at it, you just see a couple tendrils grow forward a couple inches.
And Rosie would
Laz.
kind of look at that in horror and just be like, "What's your first aid manual say about that shit?"
Laz kind of watches the rest of Jessica like disappear, and then he just like from kneeling in the sand, he just screams, "This place sucks!"
Is Jessica gone or not yet?
Oh, Jessica's
Gone,
completely gone.
Yeah, she's gone. Okay.
Billy got there just as the last of Jessica just kind of blew away.
Okay.
so I think Billy's gonna be dumbstruck for a moment. So I imagine that there's this look that probably goes between Rosie and Laz. Maybe there's some like, whether it be conversation or just looks at Billy, but he doesn't say anything. He's like looking past all of you, looking to where Jessica was, and then looking at his arm. He's got no answers, and every time, so when he finally says something, it's like every time we think that shit can't get weirder, something else happens. How does one just dematerialize out of thin air?
Does it like hurt?
Does it hurt, Jake?
It doesn't. If anything, it feels itchy.
You can't show anybody that.
I would say it's a bit itchy.
As you say that, Rosie, Jude steps out of the lighthouse. All right, everybody.
For safety's sake, no one should touch me.
Did we all make it?
What's going on? He looks towards Jude. What the fuck is wrong with this place?
What? I don't understand. It looks like it worked, didn't it?
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
we
we're-
were tiny and in a miniature, and then before that, we freaking went back in time, and then and Billy's hand is fucked now. It's messed up. I'm sorry. My
Jessica
language.
is gone.
Jessica just disappeared.
Disappeared.
And we have a
Where'd she
talking
go?
rat.
In the wind that way? Like over the water?
This is troubling.
Troubling. You fucking think so? You old bastard? What is going on with this place?
Has Templeton taken a place on Laz's shoulder? Is he just like behind Laz's neck, just going? I want that to be a thing so much.
I could see that.
Awesome.
If Laz would allow it. This is a rat. But a rat you've befriended. That comes running up and just kind of perches there on your shoulder. Everybody that is looking at Jude, I would like you to make a brains check, please.
We'll gladly make a brains check.
Ugh.
7.
I'm looking at Billy. Is this the same direction?
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holy shit, Chad.
Oh my god.
I have a 20 for brains. I got a nat 20 and then I rolled a 13.
So smart.
That would mean dice exploded for anyone playing the
So,
Yep.
See Jude's tattoo on his ass.
Yeah.
Ted, I believe you said that Billy got a 5?
No, I have a 2.
Oh. Who said 5? Did somebody say 5?
No.
There is no 5 in the numbers. On
Oh,
the
7, sorry.
I got a 7.
Rosie had a
I
7. So
apologize.
Rosie, you see this, and Oak, you definitely can see right through. The rest of you, this was did not beat the DC 5. Rosie, you get this strong impression that Jude knows a lot more than he's telling, and Oak, this is the look of somebody who seems to know what's going on in the same way that I don't know if this analogy is quite right, but it's what came to mind. The same way an author is familiar with what's happening throughout the book. You see right through to Jude as he's looking around. It's, he definitely knows. He knows more than he's ever led on the entire couple hours you've known him.
Okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
what happens to the sword?
Oh, that's
Does
a
he-
great question.
Does he have a tiny pewter sword in his hand, or is he holding like a full-on great sword now?
The sword, you know what? That's going to fall into the D100 table. Not table. The D100 random roll.
The table.
Not the table.
Let's see.
So I am going to say that there's a
That sword's gonna
10%
be
chance.
Heavy as balls.
There is a 10% chance that the sword increased in size. So I have rolled my number. If you're within 5 of either side of this number, you have a very giant lead sword.
Let's go,
Can we-
baby.
can
Let's
we-
see.
Come on now.
So
Can
roll a
we spend domain pops to give a higher percent chance?
Well, here's the thing. If you do that, you could push him out of the range.
Okay.
No, I'm saying,
I like this.
can we increase his percent chance?
Oh,
No. We could- Yes, like, can we widen the range?
I would
I
say
see, Ted.
this is a unique use of the domain pops, and I like it. I'm gonna say whenever one of these rolls comes up, you can spend domain pops to increase the percentage of the thing or decrease it depending on the situation. Let's phrase it this way. You can change the percentage chance of a thing happening up or down by 5%.
Up! How many should we spend?
You guys really want
I
him to
feel
have a
for it.
giant lead sword.
Yes.
I do, because Oak would love it.
Let's
Yes,
realize
he would be
though
so
that
happy.
Oak could not lift.
Oak won't even
said
be able to
sword.
lift it.
You guys want to spend 3?
I'm okay
Yeah.
with that.
3.
Let's
Okay.
make it happen. Let's make it happen.
So that's
Okay.
going to put us at a 25% chance. We'll call it 26 so that
Okay.
it's if it's within 13 of either side of the number I have already rolled.
Okay.
So you roll a D100.
Okay. So that is a 46.
46 minus 13 is 33. I rolled a 6. You are holding a
Aw.
tiny lead sword in your hand.
I'm okay with this. I have a purpose for it, but that will come later. So
Look,
I'm
it's not
okay
a total
I'm
loss
okay
because we came up with a new dice mechanic for the
Yeah.
domain pop. So
So,
Bruh.
so
You
he
could give it to Templeton.
could.
Oh, that's perfect.
I mean, it would kind of be like a dagger for Templeton, but
China, yeah, but that would be pretty dope. Yeah, I
Yes,
think in the moment though, right? With the brains check, looking at Jude, you guys think that he's gonna go and like wield a sword. He realizes that the sword that he has shrunk down and gotten really, really small. So he can't use this. So he puts it in the messenger bag for the time being. But you see this almost seething anger in Oak's eyes, and Rosie, he reaches a hand out to you.
Can I borrow your bat, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
And I hand him my bat without thinking twice about it.
You liar! You listen to me, you little asshole! You know more than you're letting on, and I know you do. Now you tell us. You tell us, old man.
as
What in the hell's happened here?
little Oak is standing there with this great big bat, kind of threateningly at Jude, I want you to make a check.
Grit.
I think it's grit, which would kind of function as like an intimidation. Just double checking. One of the only places I don't have bookmarked the stats. Oh, for crying out loud! This book, let me tell you.
While Jake is looking shit up, please feel free to check us out on teespring.com. At teespring.com, we have all kinds of new design logos, including the retro Paradise logo, class logos for D&D, and so much more. We have it on mugs, t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and more. Teespring.com. Just search Mini Terrain Domain.
Chad, it will be a grit check. And
Ooh, baby. Okay.
we're gonna do this as a contested grit check.
Ooh, okay.
Can I aid Oak somehow?
Yep. Well, actually no, because this would qualify as a snap decision, I think. This is out of character for Oak, and it's a pretty extreme measure, so I'm going to say no. But Oak, you can use your own adversity tokens to pad your roll.
I have one, so I'll add that to it for sure.
Make sure I rolled the right thing. I did. Okay, roll me grit.
Come on, buddy.
Okay, so that'll be 11 all up because I exploded.
Hell yeah! Oak, look at
Yeah.
you all scary.
Yeah.
Badass.
So in this case, if you want to, you've beat him handily in this roll you beat him by 8. Now, if this were actual combat, you would narratively take control of the scene. If you want to extend it any further than what you've already said, you see in his eyes you have intimidated him. He's kind of putting his hands up like this.
So I think he's weakly holding the bat out in front of him, actually. Right? Like he's holding the bat out in front of him.
Are you holding the bat kind of like this, like not like this?
No, like with one hand.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. That could get heavy
like
quick.
it's shaky. Yeah, it's definitely shaky. He's doing this as an intimidation, not as a like I'm physically gonna haul off and thwack you. But I think in the moment you start seeing tears come down Oak's face because he just watched one of his friends vaporize into nothingness. Thought for a moment that we were gonna lose Templeton, and then one of the teams is already gone. Potentially Billy is now possibly having issues. So
Partially gone.
he's just like got tears streaming down his eyes, and he's like, I don't want to lose none of my friends, you understand? And if you're responsible for taking them away from me, then I promise you I will not hesitate. Do you understand me?
I understand. You're scared and you're upset. And you have
He's not scared or upset. He's pissed off, and
You
he
have-
deserves to be.
every right to be, all of you do, but please believe me when I say I had nothing to do with this.
Then who did?
At that moment, you hear the sound of a approaching vehicle. Somebody is honking the horn, and you see a 1977 Jeep Wagoner with it's this sort of forest green color, and it's got the faux paneling on the side. Come down the road towards the beach, bypass the little turnaround loop in the parking lot, and you see sand just sort of kick up as this Jeep comes rapidly towards all of you. Burp, 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 and comes to a stop in the sand, a good 10 feet or so away from all of you. And as it's still coming to a stop, the two doors open up and Betty gets out of the driver's side and Christina gets out of the passenger side. Christina immediately comes over.
Can I quickly do
Yes,
something real
go
quick?
ahead.
I would pretty swiftly. I put my hand on Oak's shoulder, and I pretty swiftly take my bat out of his hand. Like I don't want it, because if we're outnumbered by
No,
adults,
100%. He would
like,
willingly hand that over.
Christina is coming towards you kids. And is probably going to come towards you, Billy. You have the most familiarity, I think, with Christina, having talked to her 100 years ago on the beach. Man,
I don't know how observant she is, but in the chaos of what's going on, Billy is clearly distracted. He's only half hearing the conversation. Periodically, he's looking off into the wind and then looking at his arm that I haven't had a chance to put anything over it yet. So if she's observant, she might see. Go on.
She comes right up to you and is sort of looking at all of you, while Betty goes over to Jude. So Betty is going to be closest to Rosie and Oak. Billy, Christina comes up to you and immediately starts looking you up and down, kind of checking over. Are you all right? All of you?
Not all.
Are you hurt?
Jessica's gone.
She looks around. What do you mean Jessica's gone?
She's just gone.
After we got out of the miniature town, we appeared here in the lighthouse. We came outside to check on Templeton, and I'll point towards the rat on Laz's shoulders. And Jessica said something, and we all turned and looked in her direction, and she literally just broke into itty-bitty, teeny-tiny pieces and float away in the wind. Go on.
You see her put her hand to her mouth.
And I'll hold up my hand. You can see the missing fingertips.
She quickly grabs at a pair of glasses that are hanging from a beaded chain around her neck and puts them up on her face and kind of takes your arm below where that.
I would stop. I would put my hand out. Don't touch me. I reached out for Jessica, and it started to happen to me. I don't think it's wise for anyone to touch me.
She puts her hands up. Fair enough, but let me. And she's kind of leaning in, trying to look at it. Meanwhile, Jude and Betty has run up and is hugging her husband, and kind of in a similar fashion, looking over him. And you can, he's like, I'm stop fussing over me. I'm fine. And he kind of looks, he does one of these and nods his head towards Rosie and Oak, in particular, who I imagine are looking at them in the same way that Chad and Carrie are, as
Have not broken eye contact.
Betty turns around and kind of looks at the two of you and is, oh, okay. Christina calls over to Betty and Jude. They need to know more. They're clearly caught up in this a lot more than we ever anticipated they could possibly become. She looks kind of around at the rest of you and says, you need to understand that what is happening around here, what is happening to you, it's not us. And it's not your fault. We can't talk here. But please believe me when I tell you that you can trust us.
And why exactly would we trust you? You've been cagey since the moment we met you.
I have lived in Paradise, Michigan for 100 years. This has become my town, and I care about what happens here. So, when outsiders show up, I pay extra close attention to them. We all do. And when those outsiders start influencing the town and become influenced by the town, we take an extra special interest. We've been keeping an eye on you since you got here, with your best interests in mind. Again,
Why are we
Gestures
so,
out over the water.
that's... I am
why are
sorry.
we so special that we drew the attention?
Now that's something we don't know.
And why, like, we haven't really technically been here all that long. You say that
Wait.
you've been watching us this whole time. How would you have known to watch us?
As I said, when outsiders come into town. But all of you came to visit on the same day. And all of you are staying in Twilight Grove. As I said, we can't talk here.
Where then?
She kind of looks at you like, and she does that thing where she's about to say something she knows you're not going to like. We need to go back to the bookstore.
The place that you and your sisters tried to lock us inside of?
No,
We weren't
technically,
trying
we've
to-
never been to the bookstore.
We weren't trying
Her
to lock
sisters-
you.
Aren't here.
We weren't trying to lock you in. We were preventing anyone from coming inside. Again,
Anyone like
for
who?
your protection.
Wait. Did you gain more information since the last time we talked?
Or were you just
'Cause-
lying before?
The last time we talked, you said, you hadn't talked to us since the last time on the beach, and that you were shocked when I could describe the inside of the bookstore, because we had never been there.
Sometimes you have to withhold and bend the truth when you are protecting people that you care about.
Because they can't
Yeah.
let the
We-
rest of the town know that they're vampires.
She actually
Well,
chuckles at that.
Adults like to call that lying, regardless of
Well,
how you want to twist and bend.
from a certain point of view, it's justified.
No, it's pretty much from every point of view. Not telling the truth is a lie.
When you're older, perhaps you'll understand more.
I just
You-
roll my eyes at her.
So we go back to this bookstore with you, and you're going to tell us
We're going to tell you
happened
what
to
we
Jessica.
can. We're going to tell you what we know. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot we don't know.
Okay, but do you maybe have a glove for Billy so that his herpy hand doesn't touch anything else?
I-
You could just wear one like Michael Jackson. It's okay.
It's a
We
good
might
look.
have something at the bookstore that could possibly treat it, but we don't know what it is. I know we're asking a lot of you, given what's happened to you in the last, 100 years? 48 hours? Whatever it's been for you.
Oh,
We know it's a
Yeah.
lot.
technically, it's only been about 6 hours. We just happen to have lived that day twice.
Rosie would go and she would.
It's actually been more than
Kinda-
6 hours because you stayed overnight in the lighthouse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, did we?
You spent several hours in the
Right, right,
lighthouse
but-
waiting for day to come.
Right. We had one day as the lighthouse, but then that day reset. So
Uh-oh.
technically, today is still the first day we got here.
Something just occurred to me.
What?
Paradox.
It's been many, many hours, and we haven't really eaten except for like cherries and stuff. Coop's gonna start to get grumpy.
I would imagine, yeah, you guys might experience a little bit of a rumbly in your tumbly.
I would go and put
Well,
like I see that Oak is pretty tense, and I would go and put a hand on Oak's shoulder.
We
And just
technically
sort of
have
squeeze
the free hot dog coupons.
Fuck yes, we do.
We technically still have a whole ass box of Girl Scout cookies, also.
I don't remember the Girl
It's
Scout
true.
cookies.
I snagged them from the past.
The
preacher.
for the pastor.
Pastor Andy Hill.
Listen, again, I know it's asking a lot. Trust us. We'll go back to the bookstore. We'll get you kids fed. We'll take a look at your arm, Billy. And we will start to fill you in on what we can. And she motions to the open doors. Jude and Betty are heading towards the Jeep Wagoneer. And you see that it is a roomy, it's a 1980s SUV type vehicle, and it's got the way back seat, and all of you can easily fit in this car. None of them get in the car yet. They're waiting to see if you all are going to get in the car.
Rosie would kind of grip her bat and just sort of think about it for a second, and like, if these people are freaking creepy kidnappers, could she escape? And then she kind of like rubs her thumb on like the grippy part of her bat, and she decides she probably could. So she starts making her way for the Wagoneer.
I look to Laz, to Oak, to Coop as Rosie begins heading off. And if there's like any bit of hesitation, I try to convey, we should stick together. And I just kind of give them a nod in her direction. Just kind of tilt my head towards Rosie.
Coop sees you and kind of shrugs and starts heading in the direction that Rosie's heading.
Laz takes a few steps kind of to follow, and then he stops and he turns around and he goes over towards Oak. He kind of leans down and he says, "Look, if he pulls any shit, I'll hold him down and you kick his ass."
You break him with that for a minute because he's just been like glaring at this set of adults for nigh on the last 5 minutes now, and you see him give a slight smirk of,
All right. Yeah. Thanks. He's
Kick him with those super legs of yours.
Oh!
Laz, you hear in your ear Templeton's voice. I think we should trust him. But, and for just a moment, as you see kind of him like out of the corner of your eye on your shoulder, he holds up one paw and you just see static electricity go. Zzz. I'll keep an eye on things.
Oh my god!
Laz nods and reaches up and scratches him under his chin.
You get a little tiny static shock when you do.
Is Laz gonna permanently start carrying around like peanuts and Cheetos
oh, I bet.
for
I bet.
Templeton?
It's probably gonna be great.
If Templeton's an electric rat, does that technically make him a Pikachu?
Yes, it does! Yes, it does!
He's-
a lightning bounce!
He is a Pokemon.
This is
before there were
pre-Pokemon. This is pre-Pokemon. Pokemon don't exist.
What if Coop
I
invents
know.
Pokemon as a
Coop.
result of this interaction?
Who
He's a
invents
Digimon.
Pokemon? He's a Digimon.
Wait.
Digimon.
Wait, Jacob, what year is it? that?
Oh, that's a good
See,
question.
I'm getting wise to some of you
1980.
that are trying to force your bingos. Tamiko's gonna have to get a little craftier with this bingo card.
What
I love the
are you talking about?
That's cheating, Jeremy.
But I think there's this moment where Oak kind of like hugs you back a little bit, like just kind of like wraps you on the arm, and like the two of us are walking to the car now after Templeton says that, and I feel like he finds a. Are there two? It's just the one vehicle, right? So all the kids.
Yeah, all
back
of
the vehicle and
there's actually going to be a total. So there's 5 of you and 3 adults.
Mhm.
It's 2 bench seats and a way back. Believe me, 3 adults and 5 kids will fit in this vehicle, no problem.
Sweet. So yeah, he just finds a little cozy spot.
2 of you are definitely having to crawl in the way back, though.
So
Wherever he's placed, he pulls out a book and begins immediately taking notes. Like he's writing everything that he's heard.
I'll also ride in the back.
looking at the car, is it more spacious than it should be, or is it just that kind
You know
of
what?
inside.
That's a fair question. It's a 1980s large ORV. It's not like bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Okay, all right.
But 100% a fair question, both as a player and as Billy in this scenario. I mean,
Like-
Doctor Who was definitely a thing at this time.
So it's one of those things. Billy is vying back and forth between, or jumping back and forth between, like, mad at these people to worried about what the hell is going on to, like, what the hell is up with me, like, you know, this arm thing. Like, I try to sit in a way so that my infected arm is on the outskirts, so I'm not next to somebody with it. So I guess, like, I would be in
Just holds it
the,
out
you
the
know, the
window.
middle row all the way to the right. I mean, I don't know how safe it is to be sticking my hand out the window, but sure. You do the whole, like, rested on the window ledge if the window rolls all the way down.
And for a moment, as you are all riding the very short car ride, it's literally just a couple minutes to drive through town and get to the destination. But as you're driving and kind of they're pulling the vehicle out of the sand and back onto the pavement, you all kind of, whether deliberately or involuntarily, glance towards where you last saw Jessica. And as the vehicle spins its tires briefly onto the pavement and starts driving towards town, Billy, you look at your hand and you see that scaly ash spreading a little further, closer towards your elbow, and just a little bit more of your fingertips and blow out the window. The vehicle...
So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I said, so as we're pulling away, like, I am looking in that direction, and I whisper something, you know, under my breath.
I see that. You drive the very short distance, and the vehicle actually, they don't go to the front of the store. They go around through part of the town, and you see that sort of central green space with the gazebo and the sort of the town hall and city offices, and they come around the backside of the block, and back on that backside of the block is the library, and they go by the Paradise Public Library and through an alleyway, and they come into a back parking lot to where you recognize You are pulling into a parking space immediately behind Betty and Jude's Crafts and Hobbies and next door to Pages. The three of them get out of the vehicle and they open the doors and sort of open the back hatch so those of you in the way back can climb out. And they lead you all to the back door, the green door with the brass handle at the back of Page's bookstore. And
Dead.
Christina pulls from inside her shirt, she pulls a chain with a key on it and stoops down low, and she turns the key in the lock, and then she turns it over the other way, and then she turns it back before withdrawing the key.
I make a mental note of that.
She opens the door, and you all see not the back room of Page's bookstore that you're used to, but you see a set of stairs leading down just a few feet, low enough to go to a basement level, where you can just sort of see into some kind of space down there where you can see a little bit of a rug, and you can hear whispered voices coming out of the basement. Not like creepy, but like conversation.
I look over at Laz, and I kind of look. Rosie looks a little bit concerned, but she kind of like shrugs.
We just stay together.
Okay. And
So
yeah.
Betty and
I
Jude
think,
will lead the way.
So I try to position myself, while concerned about my arm, I don't want to leave the younger kids like on the outskirts. Like if the adults here are starting to, annoy the crap out of us, I don't want them to be able to like grab one of the kids and use them against us. So like I'm gonna try, and if like Rosie or Laz is on one side, I'm gonna make sure I'm on the other, or like I'm just trying to keep myself in between the adults and Oak and Coop. I don't want it to be like overt, but if they pick up on it, they pick up on it.
Coop's is probably following you since Laz and Rosie were in the back. That means that we were all in the back seat together. And Coop's probably following behind you and is like, I don't know if you remember or not, but this isn't what the back looked like before. And oh my gosh, your hand.
Oh.
Yeah, it looks like it's getting worse.
You shouldn't have held it out the window. The wind probably did something.
Nobody knows what this is. Well, let's listen to what these folk have to say, and we'll go from there.
Well, they're either vampires or witches. Maybe we'll luck out and they're witches and they can do something.
I'm pretty sure that Christina and her sisters are witches, but not vampires. Based on the vague memory we had in the White Room.
Also, it's broad daylight.
I would
Oh yeah.
I don't know how much Billy would be up on, vampire mythology. While Scouts back in the day was very much known for the playing of D&D and that kind of stuff. I think Billy is more into the actual like camping and earning badges and that kind of stuff. Not so much, all of the other nerdy pursuits. He just happens to be smart.
I would put my arm around Oak and I'd be like, Conan, are you about ready to go in?
Yeah, I'll be fine. Thank you.
I pat him on the back, and Rosie would follow behind Coop and Billy.
As you all head into the building and down the stairs, once you're all through the door, Christina steps inside. She starts to close the door, and then she looks around, and we see from outside as the green door with the brass handle closes, and we hear click, click, click. And that's where we're going to take our break.
Ooh, secret meeting in the secret basement. We definitely won't be on Dateline.
Last
One of
was
us was
already on a milk carton.
Yeah, right. That's true.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
things are definitely getting interesting in Paradise, Michigan. We will be back in about 10 minutes. So sit tight, refresh your drinks, and we'll see you on the other side. We see a large conference room table with several documents and photographs spread across it, mostly obscuring a very detailed map of Paradise, Michigan. The map itself has several dozen locations marked in different colored ink. Most notably, it looks as if someone has circled in red multiple times an area to the southeast labeled Twilight Grove. Director Raven and the two scientists stand around the table. Miss Adams is nearby with her portfolio and a pen in hand, ready to take down any notes. Director Raven reaches down and picks up one of the photos. It looks like a school photograph of a teenage girl with large, voluminous platinum blonde hair, complete with curtain bangs and enough hairspray to ignite a small building. She's also sporting bright eyeshadow and pink blush. She wears designer jeans and an oversized pastel crop top. At the bottom of the photograph, in bold black marker, someone has written Jessica Smith, age 16, plastic beauty. Near the upper corner of the photo, someone has stamped the word Anomaly. She drops the photo onto the table amongst photos of Orson Axel Kubrick, age 12, conspiracy theorist. Kenny Cooper, age 11, funny, in quotes, sidekick. Lazarus Eccles, age 15, loner weirdo. Rosie Gunnarsson, age 14, jock. William Simpson, age 15, scout. And a handful of others, though their photographs are obscured. All of them stamped with the word Anomaly. Director Raven takes a deep breath and releases it as if she's just made a decision of some sort. So, these are the active anomalies in Paradise right now? Yes, and we're watching each of them closely, says Dr. Sharp, the dark-haired scientist. When did you first get eyes on them? That's, well, difficult. It's difficult to pinpoint. The director gives him a sharp look as if she could pin him to the wall with just her eyes. Dr. K speaks up. They seem to have been here somewhere between 24 and 48 hours. The disruptions in the lambda wave signatures were detected on either side of the brief temporal distortion. However, we're having some difficulty identifying their arrival precisely because of the Twilight Grove paradox. Dr. Sharp, quickly composing himself, adds, they've also somehow garnered the attention of the Seven. I suggest that as soon as an opportunity presents itself, we bring them in for questioning. The sooner the better. They are rapidly becoming contaminants that are potentially going to spoil all our work. That seems both premature and an overcompensation, Doctor, Dr. K says. Director Raven looks thoughtfully at the array of files scattered across the table, pursing her lips contemplatively. Or maybe she reaches down and picks up one of the photographs. These anomalies, these children, are the catalysts needed to move the Nexus project forward. We've seen more lambda disruptions and more quantum activity in the last 2 days than in the last 2 years. She turns to Dr. Sharp and hands him the photograph. Keep monitoring them, but at a distance. No interference. Let them continue to do what children do. Let them interact with and influence, or be influenced by, this town. Don't worry about the 7. I'll deal with them myself if I have to. Notify me if anything noteworthy happens. She turns and walks toward the exit. Miss Adams casts a furtive glance at Dr. K before quickly following after the director. Director Raven turns back to Dr. Sharp and says, "Oh, and let's see if we can't stir things up a bit. In the name of science, of course. Run the cryptid protocol on that one. Let's see what happens, shall we?" She and Miss Adams exit. Dr. Sharp glances down at the photo in his hand before handing it over to Dr. K, who takes it with a note of trepidation. Dr. Sharp crosses his arms and strokes his chin with one hand as he stares straight ahead, eyes flicking around as if watching something. It is only then that the camera moves around him, so we are looking over his shoulder, and we can see what he is watching. One wall of this room is covered from floor to ceiling in television monitors, dozens upon dozens of them. As the images flicker across them, each monitoring changing views, seemingly at random, we see the citizens of Paradise, Michigan, going about their daily lives. And there, in the center, 6 monitors display Oak, Coop, Jessica, Rosie, Billy, and Laz. "Welcome to Paradise, Michigan, kids," Dr. Sharp says quietly. The 5 of you have been brought down to the basement of Page's bookstore. As you enter into the basement, you see your first view is looks like a 1980s basement. There's orange, almost shag-like carpeting on the floor. There's wood-paneled walls. There's bookshelves stuffed around the edges, and you see all kinds of just random paraphernalia. Lots of books seem to be shoved in here. There's board games. There's little electronic games, like you see one of those Simon games, an electronic battleship set up. Yeah, there's probably one of those little Tecmo Bowls sitting on a shelf. But there's also like random bits of like lamps and pieces of furniture and other things sort of shoved off to the sides. And you see several chairs arranged around the room. None of them match. There's a like an overstuffed plaid easy chair. There's a worn padded wooden chair that looks like it was part of some ornate antique dining set with the arms and the high back. Few other chairs. There's a couch. Looks very much like the one in the basement of that 70s show. There's an old refrigerator humming in the back of the room. You all take this all in, but you also see there are several people already in this room. As Jude and Betty, they head over and sit down on the couch next to each other. You see across the room, directly opposite the stairs leading down, a familiar high-backed wingback chair. With next to it, you can see the little bag that has the crochet needles, knitting needles sticking out of it, and yarn. And there's 2 more wingback chairs sitting directly behind it on either side. Seated in those 2 chairs are Tammy and Nikki, who are the other 2 sisters. Also seated in this room, sitting in the antique-looking chair, smoking a pipe, wearing his old captain's hat, and his jacket thrown on the back of the chair is Heinz, the lighthouse keeper. And seated in one of the overstuffed armchairs, almost looking as if, even though it's an overstuffed chair, like he's too big for this chair, is a very large black man who you know as Shakiti from the beach, from the
Was that
shipwreck.
the guy that I was really glad didn't catch me stealing from them?
No,
Okay.
that was Guy and Sauvage.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, good. Great. Okay.
In total, in this room, there are 6 adults. Sorry, 7 adults. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7 adults. As you hear the stairs creaking as Christina comes down, tucking the key inside her shirt. And she walks across the room. She sits down in her wingback chair. You all can make yourself comfortable wherever. She looks to all of you. There's still several seats. There's even a futon off on one side. I think those were a thing.
I imagine that when Billy, starts walking down the stairs and sees not only the vast collection of adults here, but all of these people that we saw 100 years ago, there's probably like a stutter step or a stop, and like it's obvious that this is like a huge surprise and shock.
As you do that, there's you notice sitting up on a shelf behind the 3 sisters, the 2 cats that seem to sit together, one gray, one white, perched high up on the shelf looking down. These are Waldorf and Statler. You also see about a half a dozen or so other cats milling around in this room, seated in different places, or one of them probably even comes to you, Billy. A super friendly, that's so perfect that I rolled this one. I don't know what this means. It's a ragdoll is the breed. Creamy in color, super friendly, rubbing up against your leg and sort of bumping your head, trying to get your attention, and kind of just throws itself on its back and like inviting you to pet its belly.
I'll pet it with my unaffected hand, but it's definitely not the same, emotion that happened the last time, because I wasn't really myself the last time. But I'm also distracted as I'm trying to look at the cats, and I'm trying to find the fluffy white one that could possibly be Jessica.
Looking around, you do not see a fluffy.
I didn't expect to
white cat
as Ted, but Billy was hoping.
But as you reach down with your good hand to scritch this cat whose name tag says Chowder, roll me a grit check.
Of course. I am somewhat gritty. Woo!
I like that.
Oh my
Woo!
That's going to be a 23. My D12 exploded.
You feel as you pet this cat a rush of endorphins, dopamine, but beyond the usual, hey, I just petted a cat, it makes me feel good. You feel that this is like this cat is deliberately trying to make you feel better. With that roll, you have absolute knowledge this cat is exuding this power, and you can choose to keep petting it or not. It's your choice.
I'll accept the endorphins and the happier sensation, because I certainly could use it right now.
For the remainder of this scene, because you've chosen to pet the cat, your emotions will be calmer. You feel you're not like drugged or anything like that, but you definitely feel like some of the burden of what's happening has been lifted. It's not erased or anything like that. What about the rest of you?
And
Go ahead,
I
Bill.
was to say, if anyone is paying attention, as I know that a lot of us are on edge, that would probably be noticed. And since there's a little bit of history in this room, specifically with me, maybe not in this room, but in this building, some other people might be a little leery towards me.
Rosie is staying towards the outside of the room, kind of trying not to have her back to anybody. So I imagine she finds a wall or a beam or a pillar of some sort and just kind of leans on it and is kind of keeping everybody like in her sight.
Coop was gonna pull up a chunk of floor because that's his instinct when it comes to the regular shag carpeting. But seeing all the cats around, now he's weirded out. So he's gonna actually make his way over to the futon and sit up on it like crisscross applesauce. Ain't no legs down there.
I think Laz is gonna stay near wherever Oak and Coop are. If they sit far enough apart, then he'll just put himself more or less, equal between the two of them.
I was gonna say Oak would be following you, Laz. So like wherever you're going to go sit, he'll probably go closer to you.
Okay. Right. Yeah, he'll kind of indicate like next to Coop on the futon, and Laz is not going to sit. He's going to stay standing, kind of at the front edge of the futon that they're sitting on, just kind of off to the side.
For a moment, nobody says anything. Everyone is looking in your direction. Hines is puffing away on his pipe, but you can definitely tell as he's doing so that there's a either a nervousness or an excitement, because he has it up to his mouth and you just see, and just like a train, just chug, 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 smoke coming out the other side of his mouth until he just suddenly goes, as he's puffed so much and so quickly, the bowl of his pipe has gotten hot. And Jude and Betty are sitting so that Betty is right up next to Jude. And he has his arm around her. Shakiti sits in his oversized chair looking at all of you, just looking around. And if you meet his eyes, he just gives you what he perceives to be a friendly nod. Christina speaks up. You all have a lot of questions. We are going to do our best to tell you what we can tell you. We are missing 2 members of our group. The 3 of us And she kind of indicates herself and her two sisters. We only count as one. So there
Okay,
are only 5
that's
of
one
us.
more question that we have, I think, as a group.
One
Oh.
more.
I think you've already figured it out. We're not vampires, don't worry. The other two sisters sort of chuckle.
Which is
In
that?
unison?
Witches. But don't worry, we're not the kind that lure little children into the woods and try to cook them up and eat them or anything like that.
Just
Those are
the
old folk
basics.
tales. Well, this is probably one of the safest places you can be in Paradise. Next to Twilight Grove.
Hines, are you a witch too, or did you just go through the trap door?
I assure you I'm not a witch. I've not heard anything so absurd. No. I am somebody who I straddle the gap between points in time. We, Christina says, we, all of us, plus our 2 members who are missing, they are currently on errands for our group. We call ourselves the 7. And we are self-appointed protectors of Paradise. This town is a center for, I wouldn't even call it paranormal activity, though there is paranormal activity. It's well, it's a convergence of ley lines that all seem to crisscross and get entangled. Kind of like when Chowder here, and she indicates the cat over by you, Billy, gets into our yarn and makes it a big old mess. You can imagine all the strands of yarn interwoven and how difficult it is to pull them apart and identify one strand from the other, especially if more than one ball of yarn gets mixed up together. That's what's happening in
becomes a puzzle.
Paradise. A puzzle is a good word for it, yes.
Okay, with all this, forget about puzzles and yarn for a second. If you had to guess, if you had to put a year's worth of salary on it, where do you think Jessica is?
I told you we would be honest with you. I don't know.
Not even a guess.
Every one of those strands of yarn that cross each other, they cross not only between points within the space of Paradise, Michigan, but across points of time, as you have seen. But also they cross dimensions. All of you have experienced the shift of time. That's how we met. You've also experienced
you-
a dimensional shift when you were in the train layout.
And a few of us have kind of gone missing and stuff before, and like we had weird shit happen to him, but we've always like come back. So like, can Jessica come back from wherever it is that she went? That's possible, right?
It should be. We're hopeful that the protections of your grandparents' home is what keeps you coming back and will keep you safe.
What?
Like a
What do you
save
mean by the
code on a video game?
The three sisters
Is there
kind of
some-
look at each other with a little bit of confusion, and then the one, Nikki, kind of speaks up and says, "It's sort of like a video game, yes, but it's not so much a save point. It's more like I don't know a good way to phrase it, because
spiritual connection, some
some would call it
magic voodoo hoodoo.
some would call it spiritualism, some would call it voodoo, magic, some call it science. What we
So, if you had a guess, what are our chances of seeing our friend?
had to guess, the chance of seeing your friend is better than 0.
Better than 0.
Since you all arrived in Paradise, the best way I can describe it is the moment each of you arrived, it was like the chime when you enter the front of our store. The alarm bells went off. The ley lines were triggered. And we knew you were here. When you arrived in Twilight Grove, it was less that we knew and more that we were hopeful. And as we began to observe you, and Heinz, Shakidi, and I got first-hand observation 100 years ago on the beach, we realized that you were definitely somebody, all of you, that we needed to watch out for and protect to the best of our abilities. But also, you are wild cards. And we don't know why each of you is playing a part in this town. Already your presence is having an effect on Paradise. And we think you might be affecting Paradise. And it's
For
affecting
good
you.
or for ill?
That is something we don't know. I would
What about-
dare say not for the best sometimes. And she indicates your hand. And as she says so, your index finger sort of falls away like ash on the end of a cigarette.
What about all of you? Well, why is it that you're so special and different? You can live for 100 years, and you dressed like a fisherman. What is it that's different about all of you? Why here?
We made Paradise our home. The powers that reside here in this town have existed here long before it was called Paradise. The real problems began about 5 years ago. An unknown organization began buying up all of the orchards around Paradise, even going so far as to plant orchards where there were none. All but one orchard was purchased. South of town, there's an orchard that, well, the owner of the orchard hasn't been willing to give in all this time. And anytime representatives of the company try to up their offer, he answers it with both barrels of a shotgun. Suffice it to say, They have all but created a ring of orchards around Paradise. And they run the Paradise Orchards processing facility. We don't have any definitive proof. We've never been able to get close to it. But we believe that this organization is doing something intentionally to affect the ley lines of Paradise from that facility. Whatever they are doing is likely responsible for Jessica disappearing. Possibly even for the other strange things that have happened to each of you. But it's also just as likely that each of you could be exacting that influence yourself.
Laz kind of looks up to Templeton on his shoulder. And he says real quiet to him, You know anything about this stuff? About what they're talking about?
As you sort of cock your head to the side to talk to Templeton, you notice that the number of cats in this basement has doubled.
Oh, shit.
And several of the cats are looking at you, Laz. And some of them are hunched down like this, and their tails are just going.
Laz glares at one of them. Fucking try it.
The cat gives you a look that only a cat can, where it just immediately pretends like it is not interested in you and starts licking its paw.
It's offended.
Ew.
Templeton speaks up. And he kind of clears his throat to make his voice a little bit louder. I do know and I can confirm that some of what you're saying is true. And you see everybody look at you, including Christina, Tammy, and Nikki, in complete surprise as Templeton speaks up. None of them noticed Templeton on your shoulder. Shakidi stands up, his head almost touching the ceiling of this basement. But he doesn't come towards you. He kind of looks to the three sisters. And Christina just she holds up her hand and just kind of shakes her head. Laz, who's your friend?
Well, you can hear that he's got a voice of his own. He can tell you his name. Ask him.
Very well. What is your name? I'm Templeton. And I'm from the Paradise Orchards Processing Facility. And they conduct all kinds of experiments, and they do sometimes horrible things, and they don't care about what happens to the people and the animals and the things that they are doing, and they just want to get control of the power. And they created Algernon, and Algernon tortures me and bullies me and treats me really bad. And suddenly Templeton he just realizes he just started blurting all this out, and he just nuzzles up against your neck.
Well, you're good. You're good. So, see, there's something else going on there. Like you said, it's not just cherries and trees and shit. There's something bad going on there.
After we met you on the beach, we stepped through the door, and we woke up in our beds. But we each of us had these weird dreams, and we don't remember most of what it was, but there were white rooms and people asking us questions. And they're the ones that implied, and I, look to the sisters and be like, they called you witches or inferred such. But they also said something about time, and that might not have happened yet. It's all very vague. I can't remember everything. Like he Billy looks like he's actually trying, and because he's calmer, because he's interacting with the cat, he's honestly like furrowing his brow, trying to like get out more details that are just gone from the time of the dream.
And you say this happened to you after you went through the door in the lighthouse.
Yes.
But before you woke up back in Paradise in Twilight Grove.
Before we woke up the second time.
That makes sense. And as she stops, Tammy continues the thought. You're more vulnerable when you're traveling between spaces. And she says, space. And Nikki says, time. And Christina says, other dimensions. Those are going to be your most vulnerable times. And it sounds like they're already tapping into those, and maybe they don't fully know what they're doing, but they are... If they've interacted with you, their pursuit will become relentless.
I don't remember seeing anyone. It was just a room and a voice. Pretty sure that was what everybody else had as well. I just kind of like quickly look around the room, see if anybody offers something different.
I saw one in mine. There was somebody there.
I remember a fish tank. I don't remember like anything else.
Shakidi speaks up. One thing that we have learned about all of whoever these people are. Out in the open, they keep up the pretense of this Paradise Orchards business. And all the time they have been operating here, we have never seen them expose themselves.
It's kind of against the law.
I knew as soon as I said it, I actually looked right at Jeremy. Because I stopped myself from saying expose themselves in public.
Wounded.
Right, go ahead and clutch your pearls. As he says, we stay in and around town. We keep an eye on things, and whenever something odd happens, we keep track of it. Nothing has happened of this magnitude. Well, it's been at least 10 years since the last major incident. In the 70s, around 1970, there was an incident involving a series of murders around Halloween. The ley line magic was very active during that time. it was written up in the papers as something called the Pumpkin Face Killer. We let them go on to believe that.
I heard about that. I think my dad told me about that when I was little. Like, don't go out at night, pumpkin face killer, da 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 da.
It was a big enough story to get attention around the state, at least. But please be assured that beyond the people you see here, we have people that we can trust around town. That will help keep you safe. We do
the lady in the van.
Yeah, is Darla one of your people? She's not here.
He shakes his head and he goes, "Son of a bitch. You've met Darla Stapler." That is unfortunate.
But she was really nice.
Let's say Darla Stapler is on under observation. There are things about her I don't like. Particularly her connection, her family's connection to the Stapler house. Steer clear of her if you can, and anybody that she calls a close associate. She won't do you any harm, especially not in public, but it's best not to give her any indication that you have such a strong connection to the ley lines of Paradise.
What about these, and I'll rustle through my bag and pull out the gift bag. What about these? Are these dangerous? Can we not get free hot dogs today? Pull out the coupon.
Probably not dangerous. He kind of looks at it. Darla Stapler means well. She runs the local welcome wagon. Mostly she bothers tourists when they come to see the beautiful sights, to check out Paradise Bluffs or the beaches or some of our hiking trails. Trying to drum up business. What?
What about Croc Baka, James?
What is James?
Giant crocodile monster in the
You
lake that
shot him.
The giant.
You shot him right in the shoulder.
Why in the hell do you call him James?
What's his name?
that's his name.
Templeton pipes up.
told
That's
us.
his name.
He looks very like, and Templeton does speak up. He says, he's not a monster. His name is Captain James Hook. We just called him James. But he disappeared, escaped, we thought, from the labs. And nobody has seen him. Christina stands up and walks across the room, stopping a respectable distance from you, Laz. And tell me, Templeton, how is it that you came to be here and not in a cage in the lab somewhere? I have certain things that I can do because of the experiments that they've done. Maybe it's these ley lines that you talk about. I'm very smart. Smarter than your average rat. And of course there's the fact that I can talk. And I can do this. And he holds up his paws, and in a corner of the room, the Tecmo Bowl goes. the colored lights on the Simon light up and start going. Dun, 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 dun. The electronic battleship starts lighting up, and you hear. And that starts happening, and the lights in here, which are these sort of fluorescent lights, start going. Zzz, zzz, zzz. And in the flickering light and the sounds, Christina looks very impressed. And Templeton seeming you feel a little surge of energy. I need to roll a die for Templeton. There's the some of the sounds start dying out, but it's almost like Templeton, rather than turning the full power off, he turns some of it off, which forces more power to go into the lights. And the fluorescent tubes burst, plunging the room into near total darkness. But not total.
Nice job, Templeton.
Not total darkness.
Says Rosie.
As there is a glow that seems to fill this entire room with this almost ethereal blue light. And you all can now see that the shag carpeting on the floor, from in the carpet, you see lines, straight lines moving across in the open space in the middle of the floor and crisscrossing, forming a 7-pointed star with a circle around it. In the glow, you see Christina hold her hand up, and a couple lamps in the corners of the room. Bing, 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 bing. Incandescent bulbs light up, filling the space now with this soft, warm glow of light. But you can still clearly see the 7-pointed star on the floor. You all can also see Billy is starting to disintegrate. Billy, you lose all feeling in your arm. As you reach down to scritch at the cat, it's like the shape of your hand just collapses the further you reach towards the cat, turning to dust and ash.
So as that would happen, I would start like backing away from anybody and anything. Trying to get away. So
Christina reaches towards you but doesn't grab at you. No. Stay within the circle if you can. Everybody stay back. Move out of the circle. Laz, step back. And she starts motioning. Coop and Oak, where you are on the futon, you are outside the circle.
Okay, so we're just watching. That's good. That's what I was going to ask.
Shakiti and Hines knocks the chair over. He gets up out of his chair so fast. But you also notice that some of the points of this star, one point of the star is where the three sisters sit. Another point is where Shakiti was sitting. Another where Hines was sitting. Another where Betty and Jude were sitting. And everybody moves back. Do all of you move that are... So I would say Rosie and Laz, you're the ones that would have been inside the circle a little bit. Do you move out of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Billy, you see around you. You can still see everybody. But you also hear this ringing and buzzing sound in your ears as you are rapidly disintegrating into ash. Do you say anything to your friends or to those in this room?
I'm gonna try and find her.
Rosie says, and we'll try to find you.
Fuck yeah, we will.
Around the room,
No, it's not fair.
Oak, Oak,
It's not fair.
Oak, come here. And Rosie would like grab Oak and like hold him. She would like hold him like to keep him from doing anything silly.
Coop, how are you reacting to this?
Coop's just sitting on the futon with his mouth hanging open. He's watching some witch shit happen.
I imagine Coop has found food. If there was food in the fridge, he just helped himself.
He's reaching into his backpack and grabbing some of them Girl Scout cookies.
There's some
You see
Fritos from the fridge.
just that's a very 80s movie thing too. It's almost like the illumination of the sigil on the floor. It's almost like the backlighting, splash lighting of a television, as you're just shoving food into your mouth. And the camera sort of pans around and we see that same light reflected in Shakiti's eyes and in Hines and Betty and Jude. Across the room, you see the three sisters are all standing up. They're all holding their hands up like this. And you see them wordlessly moving their lips, and their hair has all come on out of the buns and being pulled up, and you see their hair moving almost as if underwater. And they look like they're concentrating and straining. And for a moment, you see Billy, your disintegration slows. But then you feel whatever force it is that's pulling against you. You see them straining, and now the camera is moving around in a 360-degree circle around you. And as it moves faster, Billy disintegrates into a pile of ash on the floor. And that pile of ash seems to meld into the floor. And that is where we are going to shift into our epilogue.
Oh fuck, he just changed his light.
Lighting changed.
Alarms blare loudly, and red warning lights flash brightly. Dr. Sharp moves quickly through the hallway, following the memorized path toward the quantum analysis laboratory. Before he can even reach the lab, he is met by a frazzled-looking Miss Adams. "What the hell is happening?" he snaps at her. We were scrubbing the quantum wave data around the most recent temporal distortion, the one at the beach at the lighthouse," and she hesitates. "And spit it out. We, Dr. K, that is, wanted to see what would happen if we overlapped the lambda wave interference patterns on either side of the distortion." "Wait, what? That's actually really smart. But how did your data analysis cause a red alert? When the patterns were overlaid, one signature overlapped with another and, well, they intersected." Dr. Sharp suddenly stops and grabs hold of Miss Adams by the shoulders, looking into her eyes as if trying to determine if she is somehow playing an elaborate and inappropriate joke on him. In her eyes, he sees the truth of the matter, and a little bit of fear. "Are you saying that you actually isolated an active nexus?" He can barely contain his excitement. "Yes, Doctor, but it's the nexus. It's the anomalies, sir. And we seem to have brought them here." "Show me." As they round the final corner, they approach the quantum analysis laboratory. Miss Adams quickly scans the barcode on the placard and opens the door. As they walk inside, we see several lab technicians standing at their workstations, each one staring wide-eyed and open-mouthed at something on the far side of the lab. We see Dr. K kneeling down, looking at someone. As Dr. Sharp and Miss Adams approach from behind and on either side, we see their faces reflecting the flashing red lights of the alert. As the alarm continues to sound, the camera pans down to reveal, lying unconscious on the floor, Jessica and Billy.
Oh, they got him. Oh no.
And that is where this session will end.
Oh no. We've got to rescue them, guys. We've got to save them. Oh,
So,
shit.
Damn.
as has
good.
become a core mechanic of this game, when players cannot be present, something happens to their character. It's not always bad. Both Ted and M, unfortunately, are not going to be able to play with us for a couple of weeks. So I had to turn the dial up a little bit. We're going to see what this means, because for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be Coop, Oak, Rosie, and Laz, and Templeton.
You guys got this.
Oof.
And we'll have to wait a few weeks to see what is going on with Jessica and Billy. How is everybody after everything that happened this episode? This was probably the biggest lore dump episode that we've had. I wanted to follow a sort of classic 80s formula of things are happening, but you don't quite know why. You've seen some weird stuff. Then we reveal who the big antagonist is. That there's somebody, of course it's an evil corporation,
Obviously.
that are pulling the strings from somewhere and are interfering. But you also have learned that you have allies. The degree to which you trust them is entirely up to you. But you have met some members of an organization called the Seven, or a group of people called the Seven. And you've learned a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to actually copy and paste something. I can put it in the Discord later. But I know, Carrie, you were frustrated that you couldn't catch all of the placards.
The code, the frickin' like cryptic bullshit.
Oops. It's not so cryptic when you look at it.
I can't speak for
I
everybody,
thought I
but
saw
when Jake,
Algernon in there.
when Jake said, "How's everybody doing?" my response was,
Persephone, Adam, Eve, James, Algernon, and Templeton.
"Ooh,
Yep.
Guessing those are the mouse names.
Except
Well,
James.
they're not on my
James is a
face.
crocodile.
James isn't a mouse.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The
Those
best
animals.
the best that you know, and this would be the reason I wanted you to see these, obviously, is because obviously you know your characters don't have any of this knowledge, but as players in the audience, we saw the green doors with brass handles, and we saw the placards that actually looked like the same as the tattoos that James and Templeton have with the barcode, but these had the human readable what their code is, which seems to be an experiment number, a catalog number, whatever it may be. For every piece of lore I dropped, I'm sure I added in a whole lot of questions.
Oh, trust me, this is one of those that I'm gonna have to go back and like triple watch to get every detail.
That's a lot, man.
Lots of
That's
You
why
guys
I
are gonna
was
have
so
to-
quiet this session too, because I was like, I want to know more. I don't want to like I don't want to overshare. I want to like know more about things.
It worked really well with the fact that we had foreknowledge that Em and Ted were not going to be here, so I was able to actually, when I learned that M wasn't going to be here, that's originally you were only going to get 2 interludes, 2 narrations, but when I was reminded of M's absence, that's when I added in the epilogue. And then obviously at the last minute I had to modify it a little bit when we were reminded that Ted was also going to be gone. So
Yeah, it's gonna suck, not being able to be here with y'all, but I'm gonna be out of the country, so
I say I
gotta do what I
think
gotta
you'll
do.
be adequately distracted.
I mean, I'll be flying for like, I think the in 2 weeks I'll be flying home, so certainly wouldn't be able to do then. I think like the other one I'm gonna be dealing with jet lag, so I'd rather not try and push things.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody who joined us tonight in the chat. We appreciate you. And if you are somebody that likes to lurk quietly while we run these games, or maybe you're watching later on youtube.com/mini-terrain domain where all the VODs are posted. We appreciate you too, and we hope that you enjoy what we're doing here. Thank you to all of you, the players. Even though we knew we had to deal with a couple things, a couple setups, I hope you guys felt like you had full agency in all of these scenes, and you should always feel that. So I hope you feel that. And I just appreciate the level of role play that all of you bring to this, and always bringing your A game. So a huge thank you to Chad, Tamiko, Carrie, Ted, Jeremy, and though they weren't with us, they were with us in spirit. All of whom, without this, would just been me talking to myself for a couple of hours. I mean, I'd do it. It just wouldn't have the same impact. With that, we're going to go ahead and end this stream the same way we end every stream, and you can say it with me if you want.
What
Check out
the
our
hell's
shirt.
wrong with your trail mix, Ted?